Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome, welcome, welcome. It is Tuesday. It is 4 p.m. ET, and we are so thrilled that you have found us here on Crime Time on A Mighty Blaze. I'm Hank Phillippi Ryan, your host, the USA Today bestselling author of 15 going on 16 novels of suspense. My current novel is One Wrong Word, which just came out, also in paperback. And my upcoming book is called All This Could Be Yours, and it comes out next September, and I am so pleased about that. But today is not about that. Today we are celebrating the fabulous Pip Drysdale and her brand new, and I mean brand new, this is Pub Day, her brand new The Close-Up, which is as Hollywood writer, neo-noir, surprising, twisty, terrific thriller. And I cannot wait to talk to Pip about it today. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Pip is in Australia, where it is already tomorrow. So you all don't worry. It's going to happen. And it is about 8 in the morning. Thank you for getting up so early to be with us. Pip, is it still Pub Day to you? I mean, it's Pub Day in the US, even though it's not today for you.
Look, I'm going pub week, so I feel like that way I'm safe. I'm just going to celebrate the whole week.
That is a good idea. My sisters and I used to try that for our birthdays. Yeah. We wanted birthday week, and my mom never bought it.
Never bought it. No, Mom see through it.
Definitely. So, do you do anything special for Pub Week?
No, not really. It's just mainly so many interviews and podcasts and trying to find time to sleep and go for a walk and stuff. But it's so exciting. You know what it's like. You spend so much time in a little room writing and worrying about it, that when it's out in the world, it's really wonderful.
It's interesting too, because the people who hear about your book first, you're sort of trying out the description of it and what's important about it and where it came from. 2 months from now, you'll have it down pat. Right, to discuss it. So that's what I want to do today about your fabulous new book. We are so pleased that you are here. So many people are here already. Here is Emily and Deborah and Susie is here, and Catherine Hollum, who says the close-up sounds great. Sharon Bishop says good afternoon. I'm very excited to read this book. Emily says congratulations on your Pub Day. Christine says hi, Pip and Hank. It's so nice that you all are here to celebrate this wonderful book. If you are new to A Mighty Blaze, and I do see some new names, and that is marvelous. Welcome, welcome, welcome. You have picked a marvelous day to come join us for the first time. You veterans, we are always thrilled to have you here. You know that A Mighty Blaze was started at the beginning of the pandemic, 5 years now, which is wild to think, by the powerhouse duo of Jenna Blum and Caroline Levitt, to keep us all talking about books and talking about reading and writing and discovering new authors, talking to our favorite authors, and maybe finding some brand new favorite authors. And we hope that will happen to you today. And we are so honored that you are here today. Oh, let me remind you really, really fast, and then we'll get to Pip's bio, that we are giving away, well, we're not. Pip's publisher I'm not giving this away. I'm keeping it. Pip's publisher is giving away a copy of The Close-Up to one lucky winner. So Mary Garrett says you both look close-up ready. Mary, we love you for that.
Love you.
All you have to do is leave a question or a comment or general adulation like Mary Garrett. We love that. And you will be entered to win when we spin the wheel of fun at the end of the show. You'll be entered to win this book. Now, I promise I'm going to stop talking in a minute, but first I need to tell you about Pip Drysdale while she's sitting there like, stop talking, Hank, please. Anyway, Pip Drysdale is a best-selling author, musician, and actor. She grew up in Africa, Canada, and Australia, became an adult in New York and London, and lives on a steady stream of coffee, dreams, and literature, which sounds perfect to me. Her debut novel, The Sunday Girl, was a bestseller and has been published in the US, Australia, Italy, Poland, the Czech Republic, and Slovakia. The Strangers We Know was a bestseller, shortlisted for the Ned Kelly Award, and is being developed for television. And The Paris Affair was also a bestseller. Her fourth book was The Next Girl, and the new one, of course, The Close-Up, out today in the US. And you can find Pip Drysdale, not right now, but after the show is over, you can find Pip Drysdale on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok at Pip Drysdale. So after all that, welcome, 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 Pip. And what's the weather like in Australia?
It's Really hot, like really, really hot. I don't cope well with humidity, and it's just humid. So I have the air conditioner going, and it's only 8 a.m. So hopefully it won't. Hopefully I won't be sweating by the end, but we will see. Anything can happen.
Well, we're all here freezing with the sweaters around us.
Oh,
So
I'm jealous. I love winter and winter clothes because you can like cover up and get all snuggly. But summer, it's just yeah.
it's interesting too. And one of the wonderful things about Crime Time and A Mighty Blaze is that we can have people and readers and authors from all over the world, which is
Yeah.
quite astonishing.
Yeah, it's really cool actually.
So let's talk about, Robin says, I'm so thankful for all the wonderful authors I've met here. Exactly.
Aww,
And Pip
sweet.
Drysdale is one of them. Tell us a little bit about the close-up. Now, see, you're going to do it here. We're going to go. You're going to tell us about this book, even though it's the first day.
Yeah. Okay. So it follows Zoe Ann Weiss, who is a struggling novelist living in LA. Now, things have not gone well for Zoe. Once billed as the next big thing as a writer, her first novel, a thriller about a stalker, bombed, and now she's stuck in a dead-end job in a florist, and she can't write her next one, and her agent keeps pushing her for her next book, and honestly, it just feels like her life has gone completely off track. But everything changes for Zoe when one night she goes out to make a flower delivery and bumps into an ex-flame, Zach Hamilton. And Zach isn't just some hot guy with a dream of becoming an actor like he was when they met 3 years ago anymore. Now he is like a bona fide movie star with PR people and paparazzi and fans. So the great thing about this is now Zoe knows what she wants to write about. She's going to write about him and them and what happens behind the celebrity curtain. The not so great thing is soon her face and name get leaked to the press, which means now everyone knows her name. And the problem with everyone knowing your name is everyone knows your name, including the stalker who is obsessed with Zach and has now read her first book and is enacting all the creepy plot twists in it, but with Zoe as the victim.
So as an author reading this, it is absolutely terrifying. I have to say, and incredibly familiar and very chilling. And as a reader reading it, it seems like it's so in the mind of a writer. It is so meta, this book, a writer writing about writing, writing about writing. Can you talk a little bit about how the concept of this book took shape in your mind and how it felt to write it?
Okay, so when I first started writing it, so what you're talking about are the metafictional aspects, right? So when I first started writing it, you see, because there's so many different thoughts that hit me all at once. You'll know what it's like. You're writing a book. It's never just one thing, is it? Like I have so many thoughts that come at me together, and then I try to sift through them and turn them into one thing. So with the metafictional aspect, I was really keen when I started to write a book about a writer who really wanted to write the next great American novel about the American dream, like which these days would be fame, but instead finds herself living like the plot line for one of those, which I can't really give away what that is because then you'll have an idea of how the plot goes. But yeah, so that's why there are references to, for example, The Great Gatsby early on, because like that's quite intentional. She's rereading these, what I consider to be great American novels. I'm not sure whether everyone else does, but like The Great Gatsby, Valley of the Dolls, which I think is just fantastic. Play It As It Lays, those kind of books. And then, so yeah, that's where that idea originally came from. Kind of because the reality is that when I'm writing a book, there isn't this really strong line between me and the character. I find that pieces of me bleed into my characters, and then by virtue of that, pieces of them bleed into me. So by the end, I'm a different person. You know, they have changed me. The way that they see the world has changed me. And I was quite interested in exploring that in this book. And then there's the writer's block, which I definitely suffered while I was writing this. So
well, let's take those in order because so many things to unpack there. The Great American Novels. No, I love it. It's perfect. The Great American Novels, you know, Gatsby and Valley of the Dolls, as you say, Play It As It Lays. I've never heard those three together, but I hear you about it. I mean, Gatsby is, and I'm so familiar with it, is, you know, about dreams and dreams being crushed and the realization of reality, and it ends, you know, so poignantly. Talk a little bit about a writer's dreams and the theme. We're talking about The Close-Up by Pip Drysdale and what a Hollywood cover that is. Talk a little bit about dreams and whoever you are dreams.
Well, One of the things that hit me when I first went to LA, because I've been there a few times over the years, and then I did a research trip for this book, but I'd already spent time there. One of the things that hit me as I got off the plane was this real sense of hope. I really felt it in the air, and I could see it in the light, and I could understand why people came there to feel and felt like their dreams would come true, even if all evidence to the contrary was right in front of them, because it does feel like that. And so when I came to write this book, which I wanted to be about, like, aspiring to something, because the thing about those three books is that they all deal with, like, the reality of LA versus, well, not Gatsby. That's more about, yearning and a story of descent. But
it's still about reality versus dreams.
Yeah, they're all kind of like, that's what I think a lot of them have in common, including like Valley of the Dolls, which is about these three women who are all they're all aiming for something, for greatness, and it's about like what they discover along the way and how they learn that like actually what they thought they wanted isn't exactly what they thought they wanted, right? So when I came to write this book, and it was about, aspiring, because as writers, it's like always been quite interesting to me that we have this compulsion to write, even when we really, like, other people would just give up. Often if you're talking about the trials and tribulations, people looking on will be like, well, just do something else, but as a writer, you're like, not really an option. It's like, come hell or high water, you wake up and you do it, right? It's like a compulsion. It doesn't feel, to me at least, like a choice. And it matters so much to us. And I was very interested in how far we will go for our dreams and what we will sacrifice. Because I know for me personally, I'll sacrifice a lot.
Yes, I completely agree with you. And how far we will go to get our dreams, and what happens that we couldn't have expected as a result.
Once we get them. Yeah.
And that's what's so powerful. One of the things that's really so powerful about this book, because it is fast paced and it is twisty and it is a thriller and it is scary and suspenseful and completely propulsive and immersive. But it's also such a cautionary tale about wanting fame, whether it's as a movie star or as a writer. And the people who feed off that, this Hollywood agents and publicists and the public and the price of fame. Can you talk a little bit about fame and the theme of fame in this book?
Yeah, I really wanted to, because I think that we can all agree that it is like the dream these days. Like, people just want to be famous, and they don't really, like, I don't know that everyone really thinks about the fallout from it, and about how you lose the anonymity and you lose the safety around it, especially if you're not massively famous. So one of the things I wanted to explore here, when I was looking at the dark side of fame, was from different perspectives. So, for example, you've got Zach Hamilton, who's this massive movie star. And so from his perspective, you're seeing, the difficulties he's encountering, but how he does have the financial capacity and the clout to be able to get protection from, like, a security guy. Whereas you've got Zoe, who is kind of thrust into fame by virtue of being adjacent to Zach, and how she doesn't really have the resources available to protect herself in the same way that she might if she was properly famous. Because there's a lot of people in the public eye who are in that middle tier who don't really have the massive resources available, but the public does have access to them through their work, through knowing where they're going to be from, like, announcements, and like, that's quite scary. And I don't know that we all are aware of that.
It's interesting because you show, and first of all, I want to thank you for writing a novel with a plot which we cannot discuss. And if you are all wondering, why aren't they just telling us what this book is about? We are skirting.
We can't. We're doing you a favor.
Exactly. So one of the things that we can tell you is that Zoe, as you were saying, had a novel that fizzled. And it fizzled because it wasn't really her fault that it did. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah.
Pressure from someone else. And she has taken a job as a florist. So she's really a fish out of water looking into this water of fame, and that she has almost tasted it and now she's out. Can you talk a little bit about why you chose to make her in a business that's actually beautiful but difficult? but also sort of a service industry where she is subservient and reliant on other people.
You're talking about the floristry.
Yes.
Well, I really loved the idea. I mean, I needed, at the beginning, it was purely a problem-solving situation
Oh.
because I needed her to have a way, because she wasn't famous and Zach was, and I wanted them to reconnect in order for the rest of it to happen. I needed her to have a service industry job in order to be in the same room as him. So, that really cut down my options. I had things like, catering and I didn't really want to do that because I care more about flowers. So I love the idea of floristry. And I also love the idea of balancing what you would perceive to be this beautiful, exciting, happy industry. Usually people are thrilled when you bring them flowers, and finding the darker aspects in it. So it was a lot of fun finding the darker aspects around the florist and around like the actual shop and around the flowers, and just kind of juxtaposing the light and the dark, because a lot of this book is about that, juxtaposing the light and the dark of lots of things. So yeah, that was why I chose the floristry.
And the fragility of something beautiful.
Yeah, that's true as well. I love that.
And that goes throughout in the book. There's a lot about writer's block and the destructiveness of writer's block, the psychological destructiveness, and the financial destructiveness of it. And you have this marvelous character who is her agent, who is constant, who has really made me upset because we have all had that. People say,
no,
do you have it for me? Do you have it for me? Talk a little bit about why you chose writer's block, how you feel about writer's block. Was it cathartic to write about it, or how did that play itself out for you?
Well, the writer's block, I mean, look, these things I can always look back. I find, for example, when I'm talking about the creative process after the fact, I have to go through and actually delineate it and try to untangle it and figure it out. At the time, I'm really just trying to figure it out moment by moment, day by day. You know what it's like. You're trying to get to the next step. It's never, I wish it was super strategic for me, but a lot of the time it's just me trying to fix a problem, right? Yeah. So with writer's block, that made sense to me because I have struggled to get words on the page. I know what that feels like. I felt like as a writer, I could really identify with that. And I could identify also with how traumatic it is, because you look on and like someone else might look on and go, oh, well, it's no big deal. Just put words down. You'll be fine. Fix them later. But when it's you and you're writing them and they're not right, they're not right, and it's really tricky to navigate that. And I also wanted to explore how she's responding to creative failure, because I think that's another thing that hits a lot harder and a lot deeper when you're the one actually going through it than you would think it would be when you're watching it happen to someone else, So I wanted to kind of bring all those things alive because they fed into why she would put herself in danger and stick with the danger, because it meant she'd get a book.
Yes, because I think the motivation, you did such a good job with motivation in this book, because we completely understand why she does what she does, and the temptation that, when she finally gets what she thinks is a good idea and it's finally going to save her, and she's not allowed to do it. Talk a little bit about, the pluses and minuses and the conflict and the pros and cons, and how how every decision propels the story forward.
Yeah, well, I think, that's important, isn't it? When you're writing books, like the character has to be making decisions, and the reader usually has to be sitting there going, oh, don't do that, but maybe I would do that, maybe I would actually do that, even though I know it's the bad choice. And so you get to vicariously see where that leads, right? So for her, for anyone listening who hasn't read the book, she signs an NDA quite early on in the piece when she reconnects with Zach, which basically precludes her from writing about him. It's kind of a gag order. So when she signs the NDA, not knowing she's planning on writing about him and the celebrity curtain, but then she gets this idea and she pitches it to her agent, and her agent's into it, and her agent is never into anything she pitches. And she's like, I really want to write this book. So she's trying to find a way to kind of like write it, but get around the NDA, and thinking, well, I'll deal with that later. I'm just going to do the work. I will cope with that problem later. And so I wanted that in there because I needed there to be a little bit of an internal conflict for her, between also feeling like she was doing the right thing by, like, knowing she's kind of doing the wrong thing by Zach writing about him, but also knowing that maybe she wants to choose herself. Do you know, like, yeah, exactly. Problem for future Zoe, exactly. I've just looked at a comment. So she's kind of at that point having to choose between doing the right thing by Zach and doing the right thing by herself, or what she perceives to be the right thing by herself, and having to make that choice about, you know, how far will she go for her art, and is she willing to make that deal with the devil, and like, and will she be able to live with herself if she doesn't, and she doesn't get another story idea. And it all kind of plays into that that feeling of the story mattering the most to her, and as creatives, our art mattering so much to us in a way that is hard to really express, because it really does matter, you know.
Because she has the option of following the rules that she's agreed to do something, or to do something that one could describe as selfish or even illegal. But on the other hand, you know, she has such a desire to write. She's truly a devoted author, and she's also terrified of failure, as so many people in Los Angeles in these kinds of creative endeavors are terrified of failure. How does that play into your novel as well?
Well, yeah, I mean, like, the fact that she has had this first novel that bombed, and because of it, she's been completely creatively paralyzed and hasn't been able to write anything else. It really plays into her need to get this next story, because she keeps having these ideas which are not back. So when she gets one that's actually going to work, the motivation to keep that idea and go through with it is even stronger than, for example, if she'd never had a book come out and it hadn't bombed. Because I do think that sense of almost making it and then not quite is like quite a sting, because you no longer have that that kind of naive hope that, like, you know, if you did manage, it would all go great, because you know that actually if you do manage, it might not go great, which really feeds into the choices she makes, really.
Well, the book is so suspenseful and so tense throughout, and so infused with LA. I mean, how do you,
thank you.
The description, as you were saying, of the light is gorgeous, and the sort of "Do you know the way to San Jose" song, if you remember that, is that all the that never were has this, you know, Los Angeles has this sorrow underneath the fame. How did you get, we totally feel that we're inside LA with how people behave and what they say. How did you understand that?
I don't know. Look, these things are always a combination, aren't they? Like I said, I spent time there a few times over the years, always with people who lived there. So I picked up things, you know, while I was there, and those experiences and observations fed into the work. And then, so you've got like what you've observed and what you've experienced, and then you've got what you've read, because I read a lot of books when I was writing this, and what you've seen on TV. And often there's a huge disparity between what you've observed and what you've experienced and what you've seen on TV and what have you. And so as a writer, I was really trying to juxtapose those two things, and then also bridge the gap between them. And that's where imagination comes in. So you've got stuff you know for sure. You've got stuff that you have been told and you know is definitely not true. And then you've got all the stuff in between, which is research and talking to people and figuring it out, you know?
And there's also sort of what feels right, you know, if it's transporting, right? If it's transporting and it takes us there, you know, it's really quite lovely. And there's so much in the novel about comparing oneself to someone else, comparing what we have to what someone else has, you know, and that can be so destructive. I know we're going to get to our questions in just a second. I have a couple more questions. Talk a little bit about the structure. I mean, the structure feels so seamless of this book. It is so much fun to read. If you just joined us, we're talking about The Close-Up by Pip Drysdale. It's so much fun to read and so seamless, but it's sophisticatedly written. Can you talk a little bit about how you did that?
Ooh, like I said, I'm not that strategic. Like, you know, I wish I were, but I kind of, it felt right to me. And like I said, I was reading a lot of the books that I felt Zoe, that's what I do when I write a character. Like I really get into their head. I read a lot of the books that they'd be reading. So I reread The Great Gatsby, and I reread Valley of the Dolls, and Play It As It Lays. And like I reread a lot of Eve Babbitt's, and probably all of that fed into the voice, because that's
Yes.
Zoe and that's what Zoe reads. And I spent a lot of time walking her, like thinking like her. So then walking her, I went back there and walked her route to the grocery store and saw Chateau Marmont right there, you know. And then I was like, oh, I've got to mention that. And then I saw like a billboard, and I thought, well, that's where Zach's face would have been. You know, every time she went to the grocery store, she would have seen him. And you know, and as for the structure, that just kind of came. And you know,
Mhm.
so often it doesn't just come. So often you have to deal with it later. With this one, that felt so natural, and it just came. So yeah.
Yes, and it definitely comes out that way. It feels very, very natural. I know I love when people say, "Why did you plan to do X, Y, and Z?" And I think, what is this plan that you talk about?
I know. Tell me how to plan.
Exactly. Exactly. Someday we'll learn. Someday we'll learn.
Yeah,
This is a fascinating character development. It definitely is. I in the things that I read about the book, so
yeah,
often reviewers, all of whom were just raving about it,
yeah,
called it neo noir. Did
yeah.
that? Do you know what that? I mean, what does that mean to you? And do you think
Um,
that that expresses it?
I didn't. I mean, look, it's not like I aimed to. I just aimed to write a book about LA that felt truthful to me. So I
Mm,
tried to write one about what I perceived truthful LA to be like. You know, the comparison between the light and the dark, and the glitter and the grime, and you know, that's what I was aiming for. So I imagine that the neo noir um, is talking about that. You know, the fact that there's a dark underbelly running beneath the surface, and it's like, you know, a lot more nuanced than what you would see in the news. Like it's more nuanced than just like serial killers and like cult killings and the kinds of things that like her dad is sending to her. Like there's a more nuanced underbelly, and compared with the version of Hollywood that we would expect when we turned up, like so it's kind of, I see it as like Hollywood day and Hollywood night. You know, like Hollywood day, what we perceive Hollywood to be, and like, you know, dreams come true and everything's good and everyone's friendly. And then Hollywood night, which is like the deeper, darker aspects, which you discover once you've spent time there or actually got deeper into what goes on. And then you've got like the magic hour light that takes you from one to the other. So I guess neo noir is probably talking about that. Like I don't know. Honestly,
Yeah,
I'm
I
guessing.
mean, I think I understand what they were saying. I think, I mean,
Yeah,
it's very contemporary. The setting is very
yeah,
contemporary. The language is very contemporary. You know,
yeah,
the underpinnings, that sort of yearning and longing and desire, and that something
yeah,
is just out of reach and you would do anything to get it. And the readers are
yeah,
saying, this is not going to end well. You know,
yeah.
don't do that. I think is
Don't
so,
go there.
so gorgeous and changing.
Yeah,
And you were, and there's still, with all of that thematic gorgeousness, we
yeah.
love Zoe. We love her from moment one. She
Thank
is an
you.
incredibly relatable character. Can you just give
Yeah,
us a little bit of backstory on her? I know we talked about her being a writer, but you mentioned her
yeah.
dad and her life.
Okay,
Can you talk
yeah.
a little bit about her?
So she's from London, and one of the reasons that she moves to LA, she's so desperate to. She gets this book deal, and it's the film rights are sold, and she's going to be an executive producer on it, and she wants to be there and kind of in the scene and like writing on it and learning things. And she just really wants to take her shot at life, and she perceives London to be the thing, and her dad to be the things that are holding her down, because you know London's quite a class-based system, and a lot of the writers have gone to like, you know, Harrow or Eton um, or like, you know, Oxford. And she hasn't. So she sees that as the thing that's standing in her way, and she views LA as this place where you can just turn up and become someone, and no one cares who you've been before. You can turn up with a dream, right? So that's what drives her to go there. As for her dad, he was a single parent, and he raised her when her mum left when she was a little baby. Um, and she doesn't really go into that. She doesn't lament it. She just has one line in there, which is like, I've probably got some deep wound around that, but I've got too much else going on right now to worry about it, right? But I think when I was writing her, for me, on an emotional level, understanding Zoe, and how she kind of like, she sees her dad as an emblem of mediocrity, she's probably comparing her dad and her mother, who's out there living this fabulous life, and thinking her mom abandoned her because she wasn't good enough, and like thinking, I want to be more like her and less like him. And that probably drives her to want to attain more with her life and like become something, to prove to herself that she was better than being abandoned. This is not stuff that you put in the book, but it's stuff that you want to understand about the character in order to write her properly.
I mean, we completely root for her from moment one, and that is really a triumph of storytelling. And speaking of the storytelling, with all of this gorgeous thematic writing and how cinematic and how visual this is and how much we love the characters, there's a big solid story in it. There's a big solid mystery in it. How much top of mind was it for you to make sure that all fit together?
Oh, that's really important to me. Like when I'm writing, I've always got, while I don't necessarily, I plan and then it all goes wrong and then I replan, how it goes. But I'm always very keen and very careful to make sure that my plot points hit. Like, you've got your first plot point, you've got your pinch point, you've got your midpoint. I make sure that all of those are hitting and that they make sense for the story. And with this one, it was quite complicated because I was trying to do it on a multiple levels. So I was trying to do it for a thriller. And then I was trying to do it for romance on top because, there's the Zach stuff going on. And then above and beyond that, I was trying to make it hit in terms of the great American novel thing, because I was trying to make it fall within, because that's what she's trying to do. So it was really complicated, but so rewarding. As a writer, that stuff really overcomplicates things for you, but it also makes it really interesting. And really fun, right? Like, even if no one gets it, you're just so proud of yourself for pulling it off.
Exactly. I love that. Those little moments when you think, oh, that really worked. That's exactly what I did. And that's part of the fuel of it. And you all heard what Pip just said about the structure. And that is what the layered structure and the layers of meaning. And that is what I was talking about exactly, about how sophisticatedly this is written. But you might not notice because you're just going to have fun reading.
Well, that's just it. On the one level, you just want people to have a good time and you want them to be turning the pages and fascinated. But then you also want the other stuff that if they went back and thought about it or read it a second time, once they get to the end and understand, they see the other levels, right? So, that's what you want as a writer, and it like gives you a kick, even if it doesn't give everyone else a kick.
And as an author, and I'm just going to say, as an author, I always know what's going to happen in books, and I did not. And that is all I'm going to say here. My final question, and then we'll get to the wonderful questions from the audience. Shannon Hansen says, "Great cover, yes, indeed." And that is it. See, there's somebody in the sunglasses. That's nice.
Yeah, isn't that clever? When they showed me that, I was like, "Oh my God, I love it!
Love it!" And it shows you the conflict. Instantly. My last question, though. Something that you alluded to earlier that I think is so fascinating. And you said that you came out personally differently at the end of this book. Yeah. I know, Vicki, she fooled me. Absolutely. And wow is how I felt as well. That you came out, you evolved as you wrote this book. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
I think it's just a case of, I very much get into the head of the character. So I will choose a perfume for them and spray myself with it while I'm writing them just to get back. It just helps me remember what's happened before in the story and everything, all their baggage, right? So for Zoe, it was good girl gone bad. So I'd do that and like, I'd really like get into her head. And like I said, I read all her books. I understood her worldview. I understood all her motivations. And, you can't understand somebody that well and have them not leak into you a little bit. Once you truly understand them and you're not judging them, you can't, they will change you. It's a bit like when you have a really, really good friend or a love affair, that person it's like a process of alchemy. It will change you. And I find that each character I write, while there are pieces of me that leak into them and in my own experiences that leak into them, they also leak into me when I,
and that means it worked. That means it's worked. That means it's an authentic, real, powerful piece of writing. And I think that readers will have the same effect, that they'll come out of this book looking at the world in a different way as a result of that. And that is an indicator of a wild success. So congratulations.
Thank you.
on this. People are filling the chat with questions. Robin Stahl says, I love the first sentence if you have time to share it. Okay, I'm going to do that. I have that right here. Any of you who watch First Chapter Fun, and I hope you do, I read the first chapter of this out loud on First Chapter Fun. This is, again, the close-up by Pip Drysdale. And the first sentence is, I'm going to read two. There's a magic hour in LA, right when the sun sets, that has the whole city sparkling gold and tangerine, even the trash. It's the kind of light that makes you feel lucky to be alive, like anything is possible. I mean, you're going to read that, you all, right? You're just going to go ahead and read that. And in the second paragraph, Zoe blames the light for what happened, and she relates the tale of what happened to her. And it's amazing. Yeah. Have you, Sylvia says, have you ever signed a non-disclosure agreement?
Well, Sylvia, I can't tell you that if I have, can I? So like.
Yeah, that's a good answer. That's a good question too. It's a good question.
Very good question.
Did you end up scaring yourself, says Deborah? Did you end up scaring yourself as you were writing it?
Yeah, I scare myself whenever I'm writing a story, because I think you have to really get into the character, and I kind of see it all playing out in my mind like a movie, and you're going over and over these scary scenes, trying to like feel what's going on. You're feeling if they're sweating, you're feeling if their heartbeat is raising, you're feeling where their breath is. And so I find myself almost mimicking them, not intentionally, but it's like you're writing and you're like, so yeah, I put myself into full-on panic attack mode. But yeah, I do scare myself.
And it's funny too, sometimes I'll be writing and I'll go like this and then I'll type, she scratched her neck.
Her head. Exactly.
Margaret says, who's your favorite composer? Does that person's music show up in any of your books? We've never had that.
It very definitely does show up in my books. It didn't show up in this book because I was quite keen to keep the references literary. So there are a lot of literary references in this book, whereas like my last one, The Next Girl, has an entire playlist for it, and there are loads of songs mentioned in that because she actually music is a very important part of that book. So that one, yes. And others of my books, I also mention musical names. Like the first one, The Sunday Girl, has a lot of music referenced in it. Not so much for the Paris Affair. And the second one is more like rom-coms she's referencing. So I tend to kind of reference something in a lot of my books, not all of them, but most of them I do reference something. Not this one though.
Do you listen to music while you're writing?
Also, I can't pick a favorite composer. I'm so sorry. There's just like too many. Do I listen to music? No, but sometimes. For the most part, no. For the most part, I just need like sound canceling headphones on and like a darkened room with like the curtains down and to like have nothing to possibly distract me. But occasionally when I need to get into the right feel for a scene, I'll put on a song that really gets me into the right mood for it, the right feel for it. So the songs that I did use for that kind of purpose, I have compiled in a playlist for this book, which is on my Spotify. I posted it on my Instagram, but I'll post it again. So that if I really needed her to feel like there's a scene with her and Zach at the pool, and I had a specific song that I played to get myself into the mind to write and rewrite that song. So that's in there. Or there's one at the beginning called Famous, which is all about wanting to be famous. And so that starts the playlist because I play that because it has that sense of like home, like of hope, like one day we'll all be famous. That's like the lyric. So I suppose it's really important to me actually, now that I think about it.
Good question, Margaret. Good question.
Yeah.
Let's look at the timing. One more question. What type of musician are you, Pip?
Well, I was predominantly a singer and a songwriter. Like songwriting was actually the whole reason that I got into it. I really wanted to write songs, but then, you have to sing them yourself because like no one else is going to do it. So I play piano and guitar too, or I did significantly better when I used to do that like publicly. Now that it's just a hobby at home, I'm probably a lot worse. But so then I started, I had to sing my own songs, and then people would be positive about my voice. And so then obviously you stop being so worried about singing them. So yeah.
That's exciting. Did you have fun with that?
Yeah, I really loved it. Look, for the longest time, it was all I wanted to do, um, which is why I keep it on my bio, because I feel like, I was an actress and a singer-songwriter for so many years that even though I don't actively do it now, a lot, like not outside of the home, I feel like there were such formative experiences for me, and so much of what I know and so much of what I write about and so many of the experiences that feed into my work were as a result of doing those things for all those years, that I feel that, you can't just erase them, because then no one understands how you know what you know or why you're talking about what you're talking about,
And all of those things, acting and songwriting are all stories. It's all about
Yeah, they're all
storytelling.
storytelling. Yeah. Yeah, and it's just like it just felt more dealable. Like, books feel huge, but like songs were like, smaller.
For you, what kind
Yeah.
of acting did you do?
I did a lot. I did like off Broadway when I was in New York, and I did a lot of like not great plays and a lot of really not great like indie movies. But I really loved it. I kind of loved the guerrilla aspect of like making movies with like very low budgets, because it would be a case of some guy would come, some like the lighting guy would come from his big job, like proper job, lighting some big thing, and we'd be like in a movie theater in the middle of the night because it was the only time we could get the venue, and he'd be lighting it. And I don't know, I like the artist in me really loves that kind of like all pulling together and doing the best we can thing. Obviously you don't make lots of money that way, but I mean, the
Well,
creative in me really loves it.
you
You get
make a lot of,
stories.
yes, you get good stories and you make a lot of memories that way. And
Yeah.
I so agree with you how formative that is, how creative that
Yeah.
is, how one thing leads to another. It's
Yeah. I don't know that I'd write the books I write if I hadn't done those things. So I'm really grateful for them.
Well, you truly understand fame and you truly understand passion and you truly understand yearning. And this book we're talking about today, The Close Up, is so absolutely gorgeous. I mean, it's a terrific story, you all. You just email me when you're finished and tell me what you think, because you will not believe it. But you will absolutely love The Close Up by Pip Drysdale. One of you is going to be the lucky winner of this novel, not this particular one, I'm keeping it, but your very own copy. And that winner will be, I know, it's fancy, isn't it?
So clever.
And the winner is, oh, that's Margaret in the back room. Margaret, you can't win. I know you want this book, but this is just random. One more time.
Oh, so funny.
All right, and the actual winner is so funny. Sharon Bishop. That is marvelous. Sharon is a wonderful veteran of Crime Time and has been such a stalwart friend throughout. So I can't think of anyone that deserves this more. She is absolutely great. All of you deserve more. All of you deserve to have this book, and you can do that. Don't listen to this. After the show, click, 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 run, run, run. It's Celebrate Pub Week with Pip Drysdale by getting your very own copy of The Close Up. You will absolutely love it. Pip, congratulations on this.
Thank you so much. And thanks so much for having me. It was really fun.
Oh, my pleasure. And now you can go have breakfast. I mean, that's just so.
Yeah.
Before I let Pip go, let me tell you that next week it's at 4 p.m. ET. Is that right? No, it's a special time, 4:30 p.m. ET next week, 4:30 p.m. ET. Next week, we will talk to Joseph Knox about the imposter syndrome. See, this is dressed up. This is an imposter book. It has a real cover, but we don't have that yet. Yeah. We'll talk to Joseph Knox about the imposter syndrome. It is a sinister, dark story about someone, what do you think, pretending to be someone else, like it says on the cover. So we will see you next week. Don't forget 4:30 p.m. ET right here on Crime Time. And we will see you then. And until then, remember, it is always safe inside a book. And it was so great to see you all. See you next time.